It's Drive Time with Holly. Business and consumer news you can trust. I mean, what else are you going to do sitting in traffic?
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. I am Michael Yaffe.
And I'm Holly Sammons.
And this is Drive Time with Holly, where we talk consumer news, business news, and give you some great advice on many things dealing in the business world. And we actually have a lot of great information to get to today, Holly, don't we?
Yeah, you know, the content we're going to talk about tonight has really gotten a lot of buzz. And so I'm excited that we're finally getting around to some of these conversations because it's all really interesting stuff.
Yeah, well, I'll say before the show started today, just when we were talking about it, I'm interested in a lot of the stuff, you know, for my future.
That's a good sign.
I've already learned so much, actually, just from hosting this show for a couple weeks. So I'm really excited about what we're going to talk about. If you have any questions, by the way, you can call 407-916-5400, or you can text to 23680. Standard message and data rates apply, of course. So the things we're going to get to in today's show. First, we're going to talk with Suzanne Mealy, who is a business attorney, and she's going to give us some advice, basically, on how you can start your own business. A lot of people want to do that, but they might be a little afraid. They might not know exactly how that works. And then later in the show, we are going to talk with Jan Balarjan, who is the owner of Craters and Freighters, a great charity out doing a lot of good work. So later in the show, we're going to get to that as well. But I don't know. I'm excited to learn about how to start my own business.
You know, a lot of us think we have the next big idea, the next invention. You know, why didn't I think of that? But like we talked about before the show got started, you know, you have a great idea, you have something you're really passionate about, but oftentimes failure to launch is where people lose it. That being said, you can't just have a great idea and start selling it or start providing the service without a good foundation, or
exactly right.
It could all fall apart. You could lose everything. So I think to be able to pick a small business attorney's brain a little bit to understand better what's the right way to get started, and how good does the idea have to be? What resources do I need to put together before I really give it a go?
Exactly right. So we're going to bring on Suzanne right now. And Suzanne, before we get started, and we're going to ask you a bunch of questions, but
okay.
you look ready to go. You look like
I can do this.
Yeah, I know you can. I have no doubts. But I want you to tell us a little bit about yourself, what your expertise is, what you do here in Central Florida.
Okay. I have been a business lawyer, mostly representing small business and startups for almost 11 years now. And yeah, it's been a while.
Right.
No, not almost. Exactly 11 years.
Like to the day?
Not quite,
Okay.
but very, very close to that. Yeah, I was thinking, okay, that would be like September-ish, October-ish when I got my bar card. But yeah, in 2006, I went to Berry Law School here in Orlando.
Oh, great.
After a 12-year career in information systems.
All right. So, and the outfit that you're with?
Mealy and Jay. We are business and entertainment law. My partner, Davey J, is the entertainment side. I'm kind of the business side.
All right. So if you have any questions about starting your own business, she is the person to talk to. And I know, Holly, you and I have a lot of questions as well for her.
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting topic because so often you watch Shark Tank and you see kind of the glitz and glamour side of things.
Do you watch that show, by the way?
I have watched it a few times, but I usually get mad and turn it off.
It's like a cop watching a Law and Order or something.
Yeah.
That's fascinating. Why do you get mad?
Well, they're yelling advice at people, and I'm sitting there going, okay, it's not that it's a bad idea or a bad invention or a great idea or a great invention. It's that idea or invention happens to spark with that particular venture capitalist. And VC funding is one way. It's only one way to get money for a business, and it's not the typical way. Most people bootstrap it.
Right.
They find the money and they make it happen.
It just makes for good TV.
It makes for great TV. It's very dramatic, and,
right.
and I see that, and I'm like, 1 in 100 of my clients that I see that have successful startup businesses started out with some kind of venture or investor funding.
Really?
Yeah.
So
it's really uncommon.
There are a lot of different ways then you could start a business then. And that is one of the main things we are going to get to. I mean, if someone has an idea, what's the first step?
If you've got an idea for a business, and it doesn't matter whether that idea is, I could be a better plumber than the guy that showed up at my house, or I have this really great new widget that I've invented that is going to revolutionize things, or, I'm a really good programmer and I hate my boss. Whatever it is that you want to do to start your own business, it starts with a plan, and everybody's got to have that, that startup business plan, and that's where most people just kind of grind to a halt. So that's the first thing is, if you have an idea of what it is you want to do, you need to be able to say, why do you want to do it? How are you going to do it differently and better than your competitors? Know where your customers are going to come from, and have a budget. It's not that difficult to pull it together. I can talk a client through a business plan in about an hour. It's necessary. It's something people hate doing, but if you don't have a written business plan, you are about 200% less likely to succeed than somebody who has the same idea and has a business plan.
It's like trying to get somewhere without directions.
Right.
You can feel your way in the dark, but you may or may not be successful and find your way to the intended destination. So,
right.
And you could waste a lot of time and waste a lot of money bumping in the dark all the way along until you finally found your way.
Yeah. If I wanted to drive to San Francisco and I said, hey, I'm going to go to San Francisco. I would love to see San Francisco. And I just get in my car and I start driving, and I never get a map and I never plug anything in. I'm going to end up in Ohio.
You're going to end up, somewhere. That's for sure.
But not San Francisco.
Right. So what would you say, what are two most common mistakes that entrepreneurs make when starting a business? What are the two mistakes that either drive them to come to see a small business attorney, or they've already made the mistakes before they get to your doorstep?
One of the biggest mistakes that we see is they just fail to make sure that they own everything that they think they own. So they may not own the business entity or the name that they're using. They may not have be infringing on somebody else's trademark or patent or copyrights with what they're doing.
So just because the Florida Division of Corporations lets me register the name doesn't mean that I have the legal rights to that name? Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely, that is the case.
Wow, I didn't even realize that.
Yeah, it just has to be unique. Like if I have Mealy and J, but if I have Mealy's and J's, that could infringe on the Mealy and J trademark, but it's going to be close enough. It's going to be different enough that the Secretary of State will let you register it.
And there's some
business name.
There's some really common words that are trademarked. Some really short phrases, some really common phrases that are trademarked. And if you're not careful and that becomes part of your business plan, or that becomes part of the identity of your business, you could get a few years down the road before you hit their radar, and then all of a sudden you land on their attorney's radar and they pull the carpet out from under you, and you've branded your business with this identity that someone's going to take away from you because you didn't lawfully own it in the first place.
Yeah. And it's the first to use the mark in commerce gets it.
Right.
For trademark law, for branding. If when I say trademarks, I'm talking about your brand name.
And
so the first one to use it gets it.
So how do you protect yourself from that?
You do a trademark search before you adopt it, before you adopt your brand name for your business or your product.
What's the best way to do a trademark search?
You hire an attorney, and you have them order what's called a comprehensive search report. We just hire somebody else to do it, and we get this big, thick, like 3-inch thick book that has all this information about anybody using anything close to what you want to use as a trademark.
So let's say I have an attorney that I've worked with in the past on family law stuff, or it's kind of my one-size-fits-all attorney. Could that person handle this sort of thing, or do you recommend looking for someone who specializes in small business law?
I would go with a business lawyer or an intellectual property lawyer. Trademark law is a funny animal. All of intellectual property really is, and that's copyrights, trademarks, trade secrets. If you don't know how to protect the stuff that makes up your business, you can lose it really easily. We see it all the time.
This is really great advice, even stuff that I didn't know. We are talking with Suzanne Mealy, who is a business attorney, giving us some good advice on what you need to do when you start a business. If you want to start a business, what could get in the way? What are the best steps? And when we get back from the break, we're also going to talk about how to handle like negative reviews. That's a big thing in today's world. That's a big thing in today's internet world. You have to be able to be out there and handle those reviews. So you'll give us some advice on that as well. You are listening to Drive Time with Holly. I'm Michael Yaffe.
And I'm Holly Sammons.
And we will be right back.
Welcome back to Drive Time with Holly. Business and consumer news you can trust.
Yes, this is Drive Time with Holly. It is business and consumer news that you can trust. I'm Michael Yaffe.
And I'm Holly Sammons.
And we have been talking with Suzanne Mealy, who is a business attorney and expert in how to start your own business. And I'm sure a lot of our listeners have a lot of questions on just how to do that and what steps they can take to protect themselves, what kind of plan they need to make, and how to grow that business even if they've already started it.
Yeah, what's the right way to get started? You know, we see a lot of people on social media, on online sales sites. Just because you're selling your wares via social media, you have not established a business.
That's true.
Certainly, if you're selling wares that may infringe on major corporations' trademarks or copyrights,
that's not good.
This right?
That's
so,
really bad.
Social media channels certainly make that transgression very public. But I did want to ask about inventions.
Right.
You know, we watch shows that are popular like Shark Tank, and we go through life and we see a need and we think, you know, it'd be really great if I could do this with that. And you come up with this widget idea that you think could really, you know, revolutionize your life and make you a millionaire. What's the first step? Let's say I'm not in a position financially to go get myself an attorney and start through the tried and true ways. As an individual who has what I think is a great idea, you hear some urban legend things about how you can mail yourself the idea, or you can all these
that
things.
Never works.
So how can I protect my idea?
I'm very curious because I hear that all the time. You can mail yourself. That's not.
There's no such thing as a postage stamp patent or a mail order copyright. It doesn't work that way.
Wow.
Copyright is in works of art or literature or films or something. And as soon as you put pen to paper, you have the copyright in that original work. Patent is inventions and useful things or really creative designs for things. And the way you acquire rights in patent is by getting a patent registration. Because as soon as you make a publication of it and people can see what your thing is that you've invented, then that invention falls into the public domain within a year. So you've got a very short time to get that registration, because inventions are where, when I said that copyright, it's as soon as you put pen to paper, you've got the rights in it. Trademark, as soon as you use it as a brand, you start acquiring rights. Patent is the other way around. You have to register it to own it.
And so if you don't properly protect it, if you come to market with it and haven't properly protected it, someone who knows the ropes could snatch it out from under you and make your million.
Yeah, and the best way to protect yourself, honestly, is to have some non-disclosure agreement written, work with a marketing company to do product testing. We've got a lot of companies in Orlando that do this. They'll do product testing. They'll get focus groups together for you, and they will hammer your product until it's perfect. Because if it's not, somebody's going to come around and design around your patent,
perfect your invention,
and then they'll, even if you've got a registration too early, then somebody can just design around it and create a better version of what you did, and they'll make the money.
That will haunt you forever.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. We don't do patent law in my firm. I work with a number of great patent lawyers in town that are experts at doing the registration. But before you invest in that, refine that product.
So even before you patent it, you should refine it?
Yeah. Keep it a secret. Things
sign NDAs, non-disclosures.
Well, and you sign those with the marketing companies that do the research for you, because most of us aren't prepared to do market research like that. But you hire a company to do that. They provide you with an NDA.
Right. They
have their form of it. This is what they do. But if you refine that product to where you know exactly what consumers want out of it, you are 1,000 times more likely to succeed turning that product into a business.
Right. So speaking of protecting yourself, we wanted to talk a little bit about something that's a hot topic for both Better Business Bureau and for business owners, and that is when you receive a complaint, when you receive a negative review on any number of online mediums, consumers can be very vocal. We hope that they are vocal when they're happy, but most often they're vocal when they're not.
Right.
So what advice would you give a business owner when it comes to managing negative reviews?
First, drown out the negative with positive reviews. If you've got customers and clients that are happy, have them, always ask for that review. And you'll have so many positive reviews that the negative reviews just kind of fall to the bottom. So that's one. And
well, how do you do that though? How do you make sure those reviews are up there, other than just having a good business?
Do your job, and do good work, and then people review you when you ask for the reviews. So if you've done a good job and you've done a good job, ask for that review.
That's good advice.
They will give you a negative review whether you ask for it or not.
That is true.
But if they're happy, oftentimes you have to remind them that this is important to my business. Would you mind to review my work or review this transaction?
Yeah.
You don't have to remind them when they're mad, but you have to remind them when they're
I was
happy.
about to say,
Absolutely.
usually the complainers are the loudest.
Right.
Well, and the other way to silence the complainers and to sort of drown that out is respond. Do not let it sit there, because if you let it sit there and you don't say anything, people go, oh yeah, they didn't even bother to respond.
That speaks loudly too.
Yeah, I've noticed a lot of even the bigger companies on social media, if you just tweet out something negative, they will actively respond.
Oh yeah.
And say, hey, contact us, or we'd like to help you, or this is what happened, and
what can we do to make it right? Or even, we understand you're upset and we apologize that you're upset. However, this is how we do business.
Yeah, very often, Better Business Bureau, when it comes to complaints or when it comes to customer reviews, positive or negative, we just remind business owners, respond.
Yeah.
Make sure that your voice is heard. Look, if your business messed up, own it and explain how you're going to make it right. Because when a consumer comes around to read those negative reviews, and you want to make sure that your voice is right up there along with the review to say, how did this company respond to the review? What are they going to do to make it right? That being said, like Suzanne said, if you support your position, if you feel like your company did not make a mistake, you were not in the wrong, you can acknowledge, look, I can appreciate that you're passionate about your position. I'm sorry that you're upset. However, our company, fill in the blank. But you have to respond. You have to respond to complaints, and you have to respond to positive and negative reviews.
Oh, yeah.
It's a wonderful marketing tool for your business. But right now, consumers really demand more and more information, and reviews are a big part of that.
Yeah. People will believe what they see in your reviews more than they will believe any marketing stuff you put on your website.
I do
social
it.
Media.
As a consumer myself, when I look for, before I see a movie, when I'm looking for a car, for any consumer product, I'm looking at reviews.
Yeah. When was the last time you went to a restaurant where you didn't check Yelp first?
Yeah, that's very true.
Consumers like information, and they like pictures, and they like to read about other people's experiences. And so if I'm considering doing business with a particular company and I see that they've got a couple of complaints or they have one or two negative reviews, to me, that does not exclude them from the option list. What I want to know is, how did you make it right? How did you respond? Did you respond, with a respectful response, or did Better Business Bureau have to redact out the curse words that you called your consumer? It's all in how you respond.
Probably is not the best thing to do.
No, because then I put myself in the shoes of that consumer and think to myself, what's going to happen when I spend my money?
Exactly.
How are you going to treat me?
Yeah, never start a war with the consumer online. One of the dumbest things that you can do also is take him to court and say it's defamation. Now, in Florida, we recognize that as a cause of action in court. You can actually sue somebody for online defamation for giving not just a bad review, but a review where they say really nasty things about your company. It's much better to say, we're sorry you had a bad experience. One of our customer service reps will be in touch with you, something.
Seems like it would save a lot of time, too, and energy and money.
And it's really expensive to litigate. Yeah. But I've had clients that are so upset about that online review that they want to go to court. And I'm like, what is this going to do to your business? Because then you're going to have the reputation of being so sensitive about a negative review that you sue your customers. It's bad. Don't go there.
Yeah, sometimes they want a pound of flesh and they want to make them pay. And what they don't realize is that in the long run, your business is going to pay, not the consumer.
Well, for perspective, I would say the entry-level lawyer fee for business litigation over something like defamation is going to be around $40,000. That's pretty typical. So if you're a business owner and you say, I would rather take that $40,000 and give it to my attorney to sue somebody over defamation, or you can take that $40,000 and spend it on marketing, spend it on improving your business, fixing whatever the problem may have been. What sounds like a better use of your money?
Exactly. So we have been talking with Suzanne Mealy, who is a business attorney. I want to give you one last opportunity before we hit the break to tell people about yourself and who you're with. So if they need a business attorney, how they can reach you.
Oh, sure. I'm Suzanne Mealy with Mealy & J, PA. We are a business and entertainment law firm in Altamont Springs. We serve all of Central Florida. We've been doing it for 11 years. Not all at this firm, but Davey and I have been doing this for a long time. And yeah.
And like she said, small business law is a niche market.
It really is.
It's helpful to have an attorney who knows how to get you to the point of success faster, and to have expertise in the world of business law, can help you be best armed to do that.
Yeah, and it's a lot less expensive to hire us up front before you have a problem.
All right, thank you so much. I learned a lot from that segment. In the next segment, we're going to talk with Jan Belarjan, who is the owner of Craters and Freighters. This is Drive Time with Holly. I'm Michael Yaffe.
And I'm Holly Sammons.
And we will be right back.
Welcome back to Drive Time with Holly. Business and consumer news you can trust.
And welcome back to the show, everyone. This is Drive Time with Holly. I am your host, Michael Yaffe.
And I'm Holly.
And we learned a lot in the first half hour of the show. Anyone who is interested in trying to learn how to start their own business had a lot of great information on how to do that, how to protect yourself, how to market yourself in the best ways. And we will post the podcast of the show on our social media.
Yeah, and you can find us at Drive Time with Holly on Facebook and also at drivetimeholly.com. And after the show, we'll post some helpful links and some information that'll kind of support what you're hearing this evening, maybe more information about what you've heard, so that if you're interested in finding out more, digging into the details, we'll post that on our social media.
Yeah, so the show is not your only resource.
That's right. It's only an hour.
It's only an hour, but we have a lot of other resources that we are going to share with you that you can use. And so in this half hour, we have the pleasure with talking with Jan Belarjan, who is the owner of Craters and Freighters, and they're doing a lot of great work right now.
Yeah, the Central Florida community both its residents and its businesses are looking for a way to give back. There were the hurricanes. There are natural disasters, and now we've experienced yet another tragedy. And people are looking for a way to give back. They're looking for a way to support and show their love. And the Central Florida business community has risen to the occasion. And Craters and Freighters is one of those companies who is using their business and the resources of their business as a vehicle to give back. So thank you, Jan, for joining us. Let's talk a little bit about Craters and Freighters. What do you do?
So we are a specialty packaging and shipping company for residential, commercial, and government contract customers. We build custom crates for everything from fine art and antiques all the way to large-scale heavy machinery, airplane simulators, medical equipment, and everything in between. And we're also dangerous goods certified.
So all of those statues and precious materials and surgical equipment, all those things that you think, how in the world did this get here? Someone had to ship it, and a company like yours would build the protective crate and handle the shipping so that expensive equipment, those expensive goods, those valuable goods get to where they're going safely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I figure they don't want it just in a box with some bubble wrap. I
Right.
feel like there's more to it than that.
Not just a shipping blanket.
Right.
Right.
Yes, exactly.
So speaking of shipping valuable goods and things of importance, tell us how you and your husband are using your Central Florida business for good. What was your call to action, and what are you doing?
Great. Well, a few weeks ago, we started a supply drive to benefit St. Thomas and the United States Virgin Islands. I grew up in St. Thomas, and it is very special to me, near and dear to my heart.
Sure.
And we've seen on social media just how much the island has been devastated from Hurricane Irma, which was a Category 5 hurricane, 200 mile per hour sustained winds.
Yeah, I've seen they've almost have to rebuild the whole island.
Yes,
it seems like.
the island was devastated, and less than 2 weeks later, they were hit with Hurricane Maria, which was also a Category 5 hurricane. So it just added insult to injury.
Right. So we saw Irma come through here, and then as soon as it left us, we started to pick up and move on.
Right.
But St. Thomas was hit yet again, and whatever recovery they had started to make was knocked back down again. So because of your connections there, because you still have friends and family there, it was important to you that those people receive help. So you started this drive. What's happened since then? What have been your successes?
Oh, it's been incredible. I simply posted on social media that we were going to start a supply drive to get supplies to St. Thomas. And I had such a great response just immediately. People wanting to help and donating everything from water and non-perishable food to baby supplies, personal hygiene items, medical supplies, batteries, everything you could think of that people need. You know, people lost everything. They're going to be without power, many of them, for 6 months to a year. And so they need our help. And unlike the States, where when a natural disaster hits, trucks can arrive with relief almost immediately, they're on an island, and it's hard to get supplies down there.
Right. So
they need our help.
Right. And so how did it get this big? Did you ever expect that it would get as big as it's gotten? How many pounds have you shipped?
We have shipped over 8,000 pounds of supplies.
Wow.
4,000. The first shipment went out last week, and it's already in St. Thomas. My contact on island that is distributing the supplies sent me pictures today, and it was so incredible to see that it's made such an impact so quickly. And then we just had 6 pallets of supplies left our warehouse yesterday with another 4,000 pounds. And that's going to port, and it should be in St. Thomas this weekend and distributed next week.
And that was something, I was going to ask you is how are you getting these supplies distributed? You're more in charge of getting it there, but who's in charge of distributing it?
So we, that was a big piece of the puzzle that I wanted to put together. It was important to my husband and I that the supplies went to those who really needed them most.
Right.
And so we contacted the Hebrew congregation of St. Thomas. I'm working with the president of the congregation, and he is my point of contact in St. Thomas. I know from knowing them personally and also seeing what they're doing on social media that they have been going into the areas of greatest need and handing the supplies out to people. And so I felt very comfortable choosing them as our contact. And another great thing is the community in St. Thomas is really rallying together to help each other. And so the Hebrew congregation of St. Thomas is working hand in hand with the Reformed Church and other local relief efforts to help people and just really rebuild the island as quickly as possible.
Yeah, I'm sure it's one thing when you are collecting these supplies and you're sorting and you're packing, but then to actually see them in the hands of the people who need it most must be kind of the point where you say, this is why I've done this. Because
Absolutely.
You mentioned this has turned into a full-time job for you.
It has. It really has.
Yeah.
It's just... It's unbelievable the amount of work that goes into this. I think that a lot of people want to collect supplies and do something with them, but when you have the supplies, then what do you do?
Right.
And so just working out all of the pieces of that puzzle has been difficult and challenging, but also very rewarding.
Yeah, no doubt it's a monumental task,
Yes.
and you're having to work a lot. But like you said, it's a very rewarding in the end.
Very rewarding.
And how long will this go on? How long will this continue?
We are just taking it a day at a time. We don't want to say no. We know that we are fulfilling such a great need, and so we want to keep it going. And then also keep in mind that we are running a business. And so we're just trying to balance everything as well as we can. But we found a way to get supplies there quickly, which a lot of people haven't been able to do. And so we don't want to cut that off anytime soon.
Sure. So what's interesting to me is a lot of people think diapers, they think non-perishable food items, they think water, but bug spray, mosquito nets, things like that. Forget air conditioning and power.
Yep.
These people have very basic needs, as well as the people in Puerto Rico. I mean,
absolutely.
When you are going to be without power and without air conditioning and running water for an extended period of time, your needs get very basic. And when you're in a humid, hot climate like that, imagine here. I mean, if we had to live outside, bug spray and mosquito netting would become, very basic, valuable resources.
Absolutely. And I do want to just say that Puerto Rico, our hearts are with Puerto Rico right now. Also, Puerto Rico and St. Croix, which was also hit hard by Hurricane Maria. They were the lifeline to St. Thomas, bringing over supplies constantly, and now they need help. But the need for St. Thomas didn't go away, and that's why we have continued to just support St. Thomas with our drive. But you're absolutely right. Bug spray, mosquito nets, that is something that we have been collecting, tarps, something that we really need, actually, are battery or solar-powered radios, because right now people have no way to communicate. And so I imagine there are people on the island who didn't realize that Hurricane Maria was coming.
Right.
And because there's no way to communicate.
Right.
So that's a great need, as well as lanterns. They aren't going to have power for quite a while. So flashlights and solar or battery powered lanterns and batteries are all really, really, really needed.
And I think we have to remember that it's not as easy as get on a plane and come stay with your family in the States. Not everyone has the resources to throw their entire family on an airplane and come stateside and
like,
move into
go?
a hotel. Right. People have really been devastated, and many people in Puerto Rico, in St. Thomas, in the Virgin Islands, they need to, or they're going to stay in their home. And so for the time being, until things start to normalize, they've got to make the best of a really bad situation. And businesses like Craters and Freighters are making that a little bit easier by helping get supplies into the hands of people who need it the most.
Yeah, like you said at the beginning of the segment, it's just a great example of how a business who wants to help can just go out and do the right thing. And sometimes it's a lot of work. There's no doubt you've had to put a lot of time and effort for it, but It's also very rewarding, and I'm sure it's also great for business as well because they see that you're that kind of business that cares.
Well, that would be wonderful, but
it's not your first priority.
It isn't our first priority. Right.
Your first priority is to help. Right. So Jan Belarjan, who is the owner of Craters and Freighters, also, they're a business, but also doing a lot of great work for some people in need. So we really thank you for coming on with us, and thank you for what you're doing.
Oh, thank you. It's my pleasure.
For the island. And when we get back, we're going to talk a little bit about charities and the best way to donate. We have, unfortunately, this year, we have way too many disasters with hurricanes and now a mass shooting in Las Vegas. And people want to help, people want to give, but we want to give people advice on how to do that safely.
Right. Whether you're looking to give goods or donate services or give money, which is what's most convenient for most people, we want to give advice on how people can do that safely, wisely, and while you're giving with your heart, also keeping your head in mind as well.
Exactly right. You're listening to Drive Time with Holly. I'm Michael Yaffe.
And I'm Holly Salmons.
And we will be right back.
Let's be better consumers. You're listening to Drive Time with Holly.
Yes, you're listening to Drive Time with Holly, and I am Michael Yaffe.
And I'm Better Business Bureau CEO Holly Salmons.
And we went over a lot of great information. We were just talking with Jan Belarjan, who is the owner of Craters and Freighters, and they are a business who stepped up.
Stepped up in a big way.
Yeah, stepped up in a big way and decided to help people in the hurricane-devastated island of St. Thomas. And I know there's just a lot of people in Orlando who want to help, whether it's with the hurricanes or with the unfortunate tragedy, the mass shooting earlier this week. And we had the Pulse shooting here last year as well. And not everyone owns their own business and is able to do a big relief effort, but they want to do their own thing. They want to be able to help. And we're going to give some advice on how to do that.
Right. So I wanted to mention that after the show on Drive Time with Holly on social media, on our Facebook page, we will post some information on how you can find Jan. And if you wanted to contribute some of the items that they're still looking to collect, we'll make sure that information is there, as well. But like you said, most people have a few bucks, $5,
right,
$50 to contribute, and they're not able to, and that's okay. They're not able to coordinate a major scale donation drive like Freighters and Craters who have put together, Craters and Freighters who have put together literally tons of help for St. Thomas. And now on the heels of natural disasters and now the tragedy in Vegas, people are looking for a way to give and to give safely and give wisely.
And when you're talking about they don't have the resources to do some kind of big relief effort, a lot of times those big relief efforts are dependent on people just giving $5, $10, or just donating goods that are needed, or just giving blood or something, or just volunteering or something simple like that.
That's right.
So you don't need to be some millionaire business owner to do that.
No, just to make a difference, you have to have a desire and follow through. It's one thing to express your concern and your love on social media. It's another thing to put your actions to work and give or volunteer or try to really make a difference.
Yeah, we had some steps, Holly, that we'll go through on, I think most people like to donate, their money,
right,
donate a few dollars to the charity of their choice. How do they find the best charity, though? There's a lot of scams out there.
There can be. And what's interesting is after the Pulse tragedy, Better Business Bureau, the Attorney General's office, everyone really geared up and expected there to be scams and there to be fly-by-night charities popping up and that we were really going to have our hands full, and it just didn't happen. I think it's really a testament to the state of Florida. I think it's a testament to
Orlando,
the Central Florida community in Orlando that, the One Orlando Fund came together very quickly, so people had a concentrated place where they could donate somewhere that they knew they could trust. But in the wake of the Vegas tragedy, for example, we see, just like we saw after the Pulse tragedy, GoFundMe accounts are popping up. And right now, we may not have all of the names of all of the victims. And so as these crowdfunding sites are popping up and these accounts, GoFundMe accounts, what I really want to remind listeners of is just because you see a compelling picture and a compelling story on social media or on a GoFundMe account, and they're stating that they're collecting money for a victim, keep in mind, unless you know that victim or you feel like that you're close enough to the situation, you're close enough to that victim's family, maybe their coworkers, that you have some way of verifying the intentions or the ownership of that account, you really don't know where that money's going. So just be really careful in these days that have followed closely to the tragedy. Give, but give wisely.
Well, and it's like you said before the break, a lot of people have big hearts, but they also need to use their brains as well. Right. You have to be able to use your brains because you want, it's great to have a big heart, but you want that heart to be used in the right directions, in the right ways. You want to be able to give money to the right things. And sometimes people just give because they don't know. It just sounds good. And
or maybe
they give.
Convenient.
Yeah, or it's convenient.
Right.
And you have to do a little research. You have to do some verification, get some information, make sure your dollar is going to the exact place it needs to go.
Right. And two, one thing that a lot of people see merchandise pop up after a tragedy.
Happened in Orlando.
Right. T-shirts, bumper stickers, bags, you name it, with, a branded statement or a branded logo or something, which goes to support the relief efforts or goes to support the victims. You need to keep in mind that if you choose to make your donation by way of purchasing merchandise, 100% of the money you're giving to purchase that T-shirt may or may not benefit the families, may or may not benefit the charity. So just do some research. It depends on what your intentions are. If you want 100% of your money to go to the victims, to go to the relief efforts, read the fine print.
Right, and we're going to post some information on all this on our social media.
Right, you can find us at drivetimeholly.com. You can also find us on Facebook at Drivetime with Holly.
All right, and we thank you all for listening today. Hope you enjoyed the show. We will also post the podcast of the show later as well. I am your host, Michael Yaffe.
And I'm Holly Sammons.
And we will catch you guys next week.